Long ago, when the 9 realms shimmered beneath the branches of the great world tree, Yggdrasil, there lived a god whose footsteps echoed with thunder. His name was Thor. Yet tonight, this is not the tale of battles or storms, but of a journey far beyond the realms of men and gods. A journey whispered only in dreams, where starlight bends and the sky itself hums with secrets. So close your eyes, breathe deeply, and follow the Thunderer, not into war, but into wonder, into the quiet paths that lead beyond the realms. Long ago, when the night sky was deeper than thought, and the branches of the world tree stretched beyond all sight, the 9 realms lay cradled in silence. The stars shimmered above, like countless watchful eyes, and the winds moved softly through the cosmos, as though even they were singing a lullaby. In the stillness of that endless night, there was peace. The great halls of Asgard glowed faintly, their golden roofs bathed in the silver wash of the moon. Below Midgard, the realm of humankind, lay hushed beneath its blanket of stars. Even the frostbitten stretches of Jotunheim, land of the giants, lay quiet, the mountains holding their breath beneath the drifting auroras. The realms were resting, and in their rest they whispered. Some whispers came from the roots of Yggdrasil, deep and hidden, where the well of fate lay. Some came from the farthest edges of the cosmos, where the light of stars melted into the unknown. It was in these whispers that the story begins, not with thunder, not with the strike of a hammer, but with a quiet calling that only the gods could hear. Thor, son of Odin, was not at war, nor was he walking the fields of Midgard. He was seated in the high places of Asgard, his hammer Mjolnir resting quietly at his side. His eyes, which often sparked with storm, were softer now, watching the night. Around him, the halls had grown hushed. Fires in the braziers burned low, casting long shadows across the stone. The mighty city seemed, for once, like a place of rest. But even in peace, Thor felt something stir. A restlessness, a gentle pull, as if the night itself were calling him beyond the walls, beyond the shining bridge of Bifrost, into places untraveled. Thor lifted his gaze upward. The sky above Asgard stretched wide, dark and jeweled, and among the countless stars there shimmered one brighter than the rest. It pulsed faintly, almost like a heartbeat, almost like a voice. And though none around him noticed, Thor felt the whisper settle deep into his chest. He breathed deeply, closing his eyes, and for a moment even the god of thunder seemed like a dreamer beneath the endless sky. His thoughts wandered, not to battles past, nor to victories yet to come, but to questions older than memory. What lies beyond the 9 realms? What waits at the farthest edge of the great tree? What songs are carried in the winds that no ear has heard? The air was cool, the silence deep, and as Thor sat, the whisper grew stronger, like the slow rhythm of a distant drum. Not harsh, not demanding, but inviting, like the lull of waves against a shore. So began his journey, not with a roar of thunder, but with stillness, with a calling no one else could hear. Thor rose slowly, his hand brushing the handle of his hammer, not in readiness for battle, but as one reaches for an old companion before walking into the night. He stepped out from the hall, his boots soft against the stone, and the city of the gods lay quiet around him. Not even Heimdall at the bridge stirred, for the guardian's gaze had grown heavy with dreams. The bridge itself shimmered faintly in the starlight. Stretching outward, a river of rainbow fire frozen in silence. And beyond it, the dark opened, vast and endless. Thor paused at its edge. The night pressed close, full of mysteries and unseen paths. He let the breath linger in his chest, and then he stepped forward, not into the roar of storm, but into the hush of wonder. The whisper followed him, patient and steady. The realms rested, the journey had begun. The air along the Bifrost was cool and gentle, carrying with it the scent of unseen flowers and the faint shimmer of starlight. Each step Thor took upon the rainbow bridge echoed softly, though the sound was more like a hum than a strike, as though the bridge itself recognized the weight of his journey. All around him, the cosmos stretched wide. Stars glimmered like silver lanterns, scattered across a velvet sea. Some shone steady and sharp, while others flickered faintly, as though they too were caught in dreams. The bridge seemed endless, not leading simply from Asgard to Midgard or Vanaheim, but further, beyond the familiar paths of gods and men. Thor did not hurry. His stride was slow, his breath deep, his eyes open to the night. He felt the hum of Yggdrasil through the soles of his boots, the living heartbeat of the world tree that cradled all things. Each pulse seemed to guide him, steady and unhurried, as though urging him not toward battle, but toward understanding. Behind him, Asgard grew smaller, its golden towers glowing faintly against the night. Ahead of him, the bridge stretched on, fading into the mist where no eyes had peered. A soft wind drifted across his face, carrying whispers like songs half remembered. Some voices were gentle, like the laughter of children. Others were solemn, like echoes of old wisdom. All were faint, weaving together into a lullaby that wrapped around Thor like a cloak. The god of thunder, who so often walked with storm and fire, felt himself growing lighter with every step. His shoulders eased, his breath slowed, and for the first time in many ages, he felt not the urgency of duty, but the calm of wonder. At length, he came to a place where the bridge narrowed, and mist rolled thick across its path. It swirled like a silver veil, rising and falling with the rhythm of unseen tides. Thor paused. He had faced foes that shook mountains, had battled giants and serpents whose names still carried fear. Yet this quiet curtain of mist held him still. Not with dread, but with curiosity, he reached out his hand. The mist curled around his fingers like soft fabric, cool and weightless, yet filled with a strange vitality. Within it, lights shimmered, soft blues, pale greens, faint golds, like stars caught in drifting water. As Thor stepped into the veil, the world shifted. The bridge seemed to dissolve beneath him, though he felt no fear of falling. Instead, he floated as though carried by unseen hands. Around him, the lights grew brighter, forming shapes that faded as quickly as they appeared. A wing, a crown, a river of stars. The whispers deepened, no longer scattered but focused, as though the mist itself spoke. Words in no tongue Thor had known, yet somehow understood in the stillness of his heart. They spoke of paths unwritten, of realms unseen, of truths that lay not in strength of arm, but in the quiet strength of being. Thor closed his eyes, letting the mist carry him. He did not resist. His hammer hung at his side, silent, as though it too knew this was not a journey of battle. Time melted. Moments stretched, endless and dreamlike. Whether he drifted for heartbeats or ages, Thor could not say. But at last the mist thinned, and the bridge reappeared beneath his feet. Before him lay not the familiar gates of Midgard, nor the shining fields of Vanaheim, but something else, an expanse of sky that seemed deeper, darker, and yet more alive than anything he had known. The stars there were not scattered but woven, forming great rivers of light that curved and stretched like threads of a vast tapestry. Thor stood at the edge, gazing out into the unknown. His chest rose and fell with steady breath, and though he did not yet know what awaited, he felt no fear. Only the whisper, soft and patient, guiding him onward. And so, with calm steps, Thor moved forward, beyond the familiar realms, beyond the reach of memory, into the vast and secret places where few had ever walked. The sky ahead deepened, stretching into shades of midnight that seemed richer than ink, alive with quiet movement. Thor walked on, and each step carried him farther from the realms he had always known. The golden memory of Asgard was now distant, like a lantern fading behind a hill, and before him lay a silence so complete that even his own heartbeat seemed softened. Above, rivers of starlight curved like silver streams across the heavens. They flowed gently, bending and weaving as if the sky itself were alive, a great tapestry of light in motion. Thor paused to watch, his breath slow, his eyes wide. He had seen countless wonders in his travels, giants who towered like mountains, seas that roared with storms. But never had he seen light that moved like water, as though the stars themselves longed to wander. A breeze drifted across the bridge, cool and fragrant, carrying with it the faint scent of pine forests, though no trees could be seen. It brushed Thor's hair, tugging at his cloak, inviting him onward. The god of thunder closed his eyes, letting the wind guide him for a time, and in the hush of that moment, the whisper returned. It was steady now, no longer faint but clear, though still soft, like the murmur of a friend speaking in dreams. It told of lands where dawn never ended, of seas without shore, of skies where even the gods did not walk. It spoke not of battles or glory, but of journeys and discovery. Thor opened his eyes and saw before him a faint glow along the bridge, a shimmer that seemed to beckon him closer. His steps were unhurried, each one ringing like a soft note, echoing in the vastness. The glow grew, revealing an arch of light suspended in the air, delicate yet endless, like the curve of a horizon folded into the path itself. As he drew near, the arch pulsed faintly, sending ripples across the air, and Thor felt something stir deep within his chest. It was not the call to war that often filled his heart, but a feeling older, quieter, the pull of wonder, the longing for what lies beyond the known. He stepped through the arch, and once again the world shifted. The bridge beneath him dissolved into a pathway of stars. Each step he took landed not on stone, but on points of light that glowed beneath his weight before fading into the vastness. Around him, space stretched wide, and the silence was deep, but it was not empty. He could feel presence in it, vast and unseen, like the breath of something ancient watching from afar. Thor continued forward, steady and calm. His hammer, Mjolnir, glimmered faintly at his side, but it was quiet, as though even it had grown reverent in this place. After some time, though time itself felt strange here, Thor saw ahead a figure, faint and distant, standing upon the path of stars. It was tall, cloaked in light, its form shifting as though woven from the sky itself. Thor slowed, his breath even, his steps soft. He felt no threat, only the quiet awe of meeting something far beyond his knowing. The figure lifted its head, though no face could be seen, only radiance. Its voice came not as sound, but as a thought, gentle and vast. "You walk beyond the realms," it said, though the words were carried within Thor rather than heard. "Why do you come?" Thor stood in stillness, letting the voice settle within him. He did not raise his hammer, nor did he speak hastily. Instead, he breathed deeply and answered with the truth in his heart. "I walk because I was called," he said. "I walk because I seek what lies beyond." The figure did not move, but the stars around them seemed to brighten, pulsing softly, as if the sky itself approved of his answer. And so, the path stretched onward, and Thor, guided by whispers and starlight, continued his journey beyond the realms. The figure of light slowly faded, dissolving into the stars, as though it had never been more than a thought in the night. Yet its presence lingered, like the last note of a song echoing after the music had ended. Thor stood for a while upon the glowing path, letting the silence wash over him. His heart was steady, his mind open, and the whisper that had guided him from Asgard now pulsed gently, urging him onward. The path of stars wound like a river, curving and bending through the endless dark. Thor followed it without hurry, his steps soft, his breath even. Around him, constellations shifted as though alive, patterns forming and fading, shapes rising and melting back into the night. He saw the outline of a great wolf, its eyes burning like pale fire, before it dissolved into a flock of shining birds that scattered across the heavens. He saw a mountain rising in the distance, only for it to fall into waves of light that rolled endlessly into the dark. It was as though the cosmos itself was dreaming, and Thor walked gently through its visions. After a time, he heard a sound, soft, distant, like the lapping of water against a shore. The starry path widened, and before him appeared a sea, vast and endless, its waves not of water, but of silver light. Each crest shimmered and fell, slow and steady, and the whole expanse glowed with the calm rhythm of a breathing world. Thor stepped to its edge. The waves reached toward him, brushing against his boots, leaving faint trails of light that shimmered before fading. The air above the sea was cool and fragrant, filled with the scent of rain before a storm, though no storm stirred. He gazed across the waters. Far on the horizon, he saw no land, no end, only the slow rising and falling of the luminous waves. The whisper returned, carried now in the rhythm of the sea. It did not speak in words, but in feeling. Cross, and you will find what waits. Thor looked down at Mjolnir. The hammer glowed faintly, its runes alive with soft light. It, too, seemed ready, not for battle, but for the quiet task of journeying. Thor lifted it gently, as one holds a lantern, and the sea responded. Before him, the silver waves parted, a path forming across the glowing expanse. The light rose and curved like an archway, shimmering, inviting. Thor drew a deep breath, his chest steady, and stepped onto the path of light. The sea was silent but alive. Each step echoed like a drop of rain falling into still water. The stars above bent closer, their reflections rippling across the glowing waves. Thor felt himself drifting deeper into quiet, as though the very world were slowing around him. And as he walked, the path seemed endless, stretching into eternity. Time lost meaning. There was only the sound of his breath, the shimmer of the sea, and the gentle hum of the cosmos around him. At last, far in the distance, a glow began to rise. Not sharp, not sudden, but soft, like dawn spreading across the horizon. Thor's eyes lifted, calm and steady, as the whisper stirred once more in his chest. The glow grew brighter, shaping itself into the faint outline of land. Not like Midgard with its forests and hills, nor like Jotunheim with its jagged peaks, but something otherworldly. Gentle curves of shining stone, rivers of light flowing like liquid glass, and trees whose branches swayed though no wind touched them. Thor slowed his steps, gazing with quiet wonder. The sea of light had carried him to the edge of something new, something beyond the known realms. And with steady breath, he walked forward, ready to set foot on the shores of the beyond. The path of light curved gracefully onto the shimmering shore. Thor stepped from the glowing sea and felt the ground beneath him, solid, yet softer than stone, as though it was woven from starlight itself. It held his weight, but each step sent ripples of light spreading outward, like water touched by a fingertip. Before him stretched a landscape unlike any he had known. Trees rose high, their trunks slender and pale, their branches crowned with leaves that glowed faintly, as if each carried a drop of moonlight. Rivers of silver wound between the roots, flowing in silence, their currents unhurried. Stones lay scattered like jewels, glowing faintly in blues, greens, and golds. The very air seemed alive, carrying a calm hum that resonated deep in Thor's chest. He paused, listening. There was no sound of beasts, no cries of ravens, no thunder overhead. Yet it was not empty. The land breathed, softly, steadily, like a great heart at rest. Thor walked slowly along the glowing banks of the river, his boots leaving no mark. Every so often, a leaf would drift down from the trees, glowing brighter as it fell, before dissolving into sparks upon the ground. The sight calmed him, reminding him of snowflakes falling gently across the quiet fields of Midgard, though this place carried no chill, only warmth, only peace. After a time, he came upon a clearing where the river widened into a still pool. Its surface shone like glass, reflecting the stars above and the silver canopy of the glowing trees. Thor knelt beside it, resting his hand against the surface. The water did not ripple. Instead, It accepted his touch, spreading warmth through his skin, and then, in its surface, he saw visions. Not of battle, not of storms, but of the realms as they were in rest. He saw Midgard beneath its quiet night, hearth fires glowing faintly in villages, mothers whispering lullabies to children. He saw Jotunheim at peace, frost settling gently across the mountains as the giants slumbered. He saw Asgard, his home, its golden towers shining faintly beneath the moon. Each image lingered for a moment, then drifted away like a dream. Thor's chest rose and fell with deep breath, his eyes soft as he watched. The pool did not show him what was to come, nor what had been, but what simply was, the beauty of quiet, the calm that lived even in mighty realms. As he lifted his hand from the pool, a ripple spread outward. From the far side of the water, a shape stirred. At first it was only light, drifting and gathering, but soon it formed into a figure, tall, graceful, and calm. Its features were veiled in radiance, its body flowing like moonlit mist. The figure did not speak with voice, but its presence filled Thor's thoughts. Gentle and unhurried, "Welcome, traveler," it said within him. "You among gods or men walk this shore. You come not with war, but with wonder. And so, the path opens for you." Thor bowed his head slightly, not in submission, but in respect. "I follow the call," he answered. "I seek what lies beyond." The figure's form shimmered softly, as if in approval. It gestured toward the forest that stretched beyond the clearing. The trees there seemed deeper, their glow richer, their paths winding into mystery. "The way lies forward," the figure said, its voice like a calm wind stirring across still water. "But each step will not show you power, it will show you truth. Walk gently, Thunderer, and the realms beyond will open." With that, the figure dissolved back into light, drifting into the pool until the surface was once more still and calm. Thor remained a moment longer, gazing at the quiet water, letting the vision settle into his heart. Then he rose, steady and unhurried, and turned toward the glowing forest. The whisper stirred once more within his chest, patient and soft, guiding him on. And so, he stepped into the silver woods, where shadows of starlight danced across the ground, and where each step promised new wonders beyond the known. The forest welcomed him with silence, though it was not an empty stillness. It was alive, filled with subtle sounds that seemed woven into the very air. The leaves rustled softly, though no wind stirred. Streams of light trickled down from the branches above, glowing faintly as they touched the ground, as though the trees themselves shed starlight instead of shade. Thor moved with care, his steps slow and steady. Each footfall pressed lightly into the glowing soil, sending out faint ripples that faded almost at once. His breath was deep, and his gaze wandered upward to the towering trees whose crowns seemed to brush the heavens. The air smelled faintly of pine and rain, though sweeter, cleaner, like the first breath of dawn. The deeper he walked, the more the forest seemed to shift around him. Paths appeared where none had been. Arches of branches formed above, closing like doorways, then opening again into wide clearings filled with silver mist. Thor felt no unease, the whisper in his chest guided him. Calm and certain, as though the forest itself opened at his passing. In one clearing, he saw a tree unlike the others. Its trunk was vast, broader than a hall, and its bark shimmered with countless runes that glowed faintly, fading and returning like breath. Thor approached slowly, laying a hand upon its surface. The bark was warm beneath his palm, and at his touch, the runes brightened. Visions stirred in his mind, vast roots winding deep into the cosmos, branches stretching across realms unseen. It reminded him of Yggdrasil, the great world tree, yet it was not the same. This tree felt older still, a reflection, perhaps, or a shadow cast from beyond. The visions showed rivers of stars flowing like lifeblood, voices drifting like wind through leaves, and paths curling outward into eternity. Thor withdrew his hand, bowing his head in quiet awe. As he turned to move on, a sound reached him. At first, it was faint, like the sighing of distant waters, but slowly it grew, shaping itself into music. Not harsh, not wild, but gentle, a melody carried by unseen strings. Thor stilled, listening. The music guided him through the forest, weaving softly through the trees. He followed, each step steady, until he reached another clearing. There, upon a stone that glowed with pale light, sat a figure. It was slender, cloaked in silver mist, its hands moving across a harp that shimmered like moonlight. The notes filled the clearing, rising and falling like waves, carrying with them a peace that reached deep into Thor's chest. He stood quietly, not wishing to disturb. The figure's head lifted slightly, though its face was hidden by glow. Its hands did not cease, but the melody shifted, softening further, as though acknowledging his presence. "You carry thunder." The figure's voice drifted, soft as the music. "And yet you walk with silence. Few among your kind find their way here." Thor inclined his head. His voice, when he spoke, was low and even. "I walk because the night called me. I seek what lies beyond the known." The figure's hands brushed the harp, and the sound lingered like a long sigh of wind. "Then listen, Thunderer. Beyond strength lies stillness. Beyond storm lies calm. Only those who walk gently hear the truth of these woods." Thor said nothing, but he listened. He stood as the melody carried on, each note weaving into the air until the forest itself seemed to sing. His shoulders eased, his breath deepened, and in that moment, even the god of thunder seemed no more than a traveler wrapped in song. When the final note faded, the figure lowered its hands. "Go onward," it whispered. "The forest waits. The path unfolds." The harp dissolved into light, and the figure faded with it, leaving only the clearing, quiet and calm once more. Thor breathed deeply, the music still echoing in his chest. Then he stepped forward, continuing into the silver woods, where shadows of light shifted like dreams, and the whisper within him grew ever steadier. The silver forest deepened as Thor walked, its paths winding like a labyrinth woven of light and mist. Each turn seemed both new and familiar, as though he were stepping through a dream where the ground remembered his steps before he made them. The air was gentle and still, yet alive with a quiet hum that resonated through the branches, a song too vast for words. Thor moved with patience, unhurried, letting the forest reveal itself. At times, the trees leaned close, their trunks narrowing into corridors of pale glow. At other times, they opened wide, unveiling clearings where the stars above seemed to shine brighter, pouring their light into the earth below. Each shift felt purposeful, as if the land itself were guiding him. After some time, he came upon a brook, its water flowing clear and faintly luminous, weaving between stones that gleamed like polished crystal. The brook's voice was soft, a trickling murmur that blended with the hum of the trees. Thor knelt beside it, dipping his hand into the water. It was cool, carrying a sweetness unlike any stream of Midgard or Asgard. When he lifted his hand, droplets clung to his skin, glowing faintly before fading like sparks. As he watched, the brook began to change. Its flow slowed, then stilled, until the water lay flat as a mirror. Thor gazed into its surface and saw not his reflection, but scenes of journeys past. He saw himself striding across Midgard's fields, laughter of men rising around him. He saw battles fought against giants, their roars shaking the mountains. He saw the storms he had summoned, lightning splitting the skies. The images stirred memories in his chest, but the brook's surface rippled and shifted. The vision softened into something else. The faces of those who had rested under his protection. Farmers sleeping in peace, children playing without fear, villages safe beneath clear skies. Thor's breath deepened. He had thought often of his battles, but seldom of the quiet left behind when the storms had passed. The brook released him then, the image is fading into flowing water once more. Thor rose slowly, his chest steady, carrying the memory of what he had seen. The path continued, winding through arches of trees. As he walked, faint lights appeared along the branches, tiny orbs, drifting downward like lanterns loosed into the air. They hovered gently, glowing soft blues and silvers, lighting the path ahead. Thor lifted a hand, and one of the lights floated close. It circled him once, humming faintly, then drifted away into the woods. The whisper within his chest grew stronger with each step. No longer faint, but clear, steady, like a heartbeat guiding him forward. He followed without doubt, his stride calm, his gaze open. At last, the path brought him to a vast meadow within the forest. The ground was soft with silver grass, swaying though no wind moved. In its center stood a great stone, tall and smooth, its surface etched with patterns that glowed like runes. The meadow was quiet, yet it felt expectant, as though it waited for him. Thor approached the stone, placing his hand upon it. The patterns glowed brighter, lines of light spreading outward across its surface. A deep vibration stirred through the ground, resonating up through his arm into his chest. From the stone came a voice, ancient and calm, carrying not in sound but in thought. Thunderer, you walk with wonder, not with wrath. Few among the strong find their way to these halls of stillness. You are seen. You are guided. Walk further, and the truths beyond the realm shall open. The light spread outward, across the meadow, until the grass shimmered like a sea of silver. Thor withdrew his hand, his eyes steady, his breath calm. The path stretched beyond the stone, winding deeper into the forest, and he knew the journey had only begun to unfold. So, with quiet steps, Thor moved onward, the whisper steady in his chest, the night vast around him, the beyond opening with every stride. Thor stepped beyond the glowing stone, and into a part of the forest that felt different from all before. The trees grew taller here, their trunks pale as bone, their branches stretching so high they vanished into the starlit sky. The air grew stiller, denser, as though every breath carried him deeper into a place where time itself slowed. The path beneath his feet glimmered faintly, marked by threads of light that wove through the soil like roots of silver. Each step echoed softly, though not with sound, more like a pulse through the air, as if the forest acknowledged him, step by step. Soon, the ground opened into another clearing, though this one was unlike the others. A wide circle lay before him, ringed by stones that glowed faintly, their shapes smooth and ancient. Within the circle, the grass was pressed flat, as though countless travelers had stood here before, though the air carried no scent of others. At the circle's center was a single flame. It burned without smoke, its light soft and golden, rising steady from a basin of stone. The flame did not flicker, but pulsed gently, as if breathing. Thor approached, his chest steady, his eyes fixed upon the glow. The flame's warmth brushed his skin, though it was neither harsh nor biting. It was comfort itself, the warmth of hearths in winter, of firelight in quiet halls. He stood before it, and in its light, shadows shifted. They were not shadows of the trees, nor of his form, but of memories. He saw himself again, hammer in hand, thunder in his wake, storms breaking across the skies. Yet the flame did not judge. It simply showed him as he was. A god of might, a bringer of storms, but also a guardian, a protector. The whisper in his chest grew stronger, aligning with the pulse of the flame. It was no longer faint, but a clear rhythm, as though his very heart was answering the call of this place. And then, from the light, another vision unfolded. He saw the realms once more, but not in war, nor in struggle. Instead, he saw what bound them together, the quiet threads of life that stretched from one to another, unseen yet unbroken. The breath of Midgard's mortals, the slumber of Jotunheim's giants, the still glow of Asgard's halls, all of them connected, flowing into the same vast stream. The flame seemed to whisper, though it spoke without words. Beyond storm lies silence. Beyond silence lies truth. And beyond truth lies the path unseen. Thor bowed his head slightly, accepting the vision. He felt no need to speak. The moment did not ask for words, only for stillness. At last, the flame pulsed once more brighter, then dimmed back into its gentle glow. The stones around the circle shimmered faintly, and the path ahead revealed itself. A narrow trail leading into a deeper stretch of forest, where the light grew softer still, almost dreamlike. Thor turned, his steps calm, his spirit steady. The whisper guided him onward, into the depths of the silver woods, where the realms beyond awaited. The forest grew quieter as Thor followed the narrow trail, its silence deep yet comforting, like a lullaby carried by the earth itself. The trees here leaned closer, their branches weaving overhead into a vast canopy of light. Faint glimmers floated down like drifting stars, settling softly on the ground before fading away. Thor walked unhurried, his breath steady, his eyes tracing the glow around him. The air carried a faint fragrance, sweet, like blossoms unseen, mingled with the freshness of rain. Each inhalation calmed his chest, easing the weight of all he had carried from realms of battle and storm. Soon, the path opened into another clearing, though this one was unlike the rest. At its center lay a wide pool, its surface perfectly still, like polished glass. No ripple stirred it, not even from the breeze that barely touched the trees. Around its edge, stones rose in a perfect ring, smooth and pale, their reflections shining clearly in the water. Thor approached, his steps soft, until he stood at the pool's edge. He gazed into its depths, expecting visions as before. Yet this water did not show scenes of the realms, nor of battles, nor even of peace. Instead, it showed only the sky above, the stars gleaming endlessly, mirrored so perfectly it seemed as though he gazed into the heavens themselves. For a moment, he felt as though he stood between two skies, one above, one beneath. The stars surrounded him, infinite and calm, their light falling gently across his face. He breathed deeply, and the whisper at his chest matched their rhythm, steady as the night itself. Then the surface shifted. Slowly, without sound, a figure rose from the water. It was tall and cloaked in silver, its form half reflection, half light. Where its face should have been, there was only the glow of stars. The figure spoke, though its voice was like ripples spreading through the pool, calm and resonant. "Thunderer, you have crossed the paths of stillness. You have heard the harp, seen the flame, touched the forest's truth. Now you stand at the mirror of the realms. What you seek lies not only beyond, but also within." Thor's gaze held steady. His voice was low, but clear. "I came at the call. I seek the path that stretches past what is known. What lies further?" The figure lifted a hand, and the pool stirred. Images shimmered across its surface. Worlds beyond the 9 realms, places not spoken in Asgard's halls. Lands of endless night where rivers of stars flowed, and halls of dawn where light never dimmed. Shapes vast and strange drifted across the horizon, neither god nor giant, but something older, deeper. These, the figure whispered, are not realms of power, nor of rule. They are realms of being. Few among gods walk there, for they are not places of conquest, but of truth. The pool calmed again, showing only the stars. The figure's form dimmed, its voice fading into the hush of the night. "The way is open. Walk gently, and the beyond shall receive you." With that, the figure dissolved back into the pool, leaving the surface still and clear once more. Thor stood in silence, letting the vision settle. He felt no haste, no urge to question further. Instead, he breathed deeply, filling his chest with the calm of the mirrored stars. Then, with steady steps, he turned from the pool and followed the path that stretched onward, deeper into the forest, deeper into the beyond. The path beyond the mirrored pool grew narrower, winding like a ribbon of light between towering trees. Their trunks gleamed faintly, and their leaves shimmered in quiet waves, as though the forest itself breathed in harmony with Thor's steps. The air grew softer here, touched with a hush so deep it felt sacred, as though even the stars leaned closer to listen. Thor's pace slowed, not from weariness, but from reverence. He felt the weight of silence settle upon him, a silence not empty but full, like the pause between the rise and fall of thunder. Each step sank lightly into the glowing soil, his presence blending with the calm around him. Soon, the trees parted, and before him stretched a vast glade unlike any he had seen. The ground was smooth, carpeted in silver moss that glowed faintly in the starlight. At the glade's center rose a great arch of stone, taller than any hall in Asgard, its surface etched with symbols that pulsed faintly like a heartbeat. The arch did not stand alone, it opened into nothing. Through it shimmered a veil of light, fluid as water, vast as the night sky. Stars drifted within its glow, moving slowly, as though carried by unseen currents. It was a doorway, but to where, Thor could not yet know. He stepped closer, his chest steady, the whisper within him now strong and clear. It no longer felt like a distant guide, it was a part of him, pulsing with every beat of his heart. As he neared the arch, the symbols across its surface brightened, filling the glade with a soft radiance. The air hummed, low and resonant, a sound that sank deep into his bones. Thor paused before it, gazing into the flowing light, and then, from the arch itself, a voice arose, not one figure, not one presence, but many, woven together. It was the sound of countless tones, deep and high, soft and strong, speaking as one. Thunderer, guardian of realms, you have walked the path of stillness. You have seen beyond battle, beyond storm, beyond the roar of your own might. The veil before you does not lead to power, but to wonder. Step through, and the beyond shall unfold. Thor stood silent, his breath deep, his hand resting upon the haft of his hammer, not in readiness for war, but as a reminder of who he was. His gaze lingered on the veil, watching the stars drift within its glow. For a long moment, he listened to the hum of the arch, to the quiet pulse of the earth beneath his feet, to the steady rhythm within his chest. Then he stepped forward, slow and calm, into the arch of stone. The veil of light shimmered around him, warm and cool at once, like water and flame entwined. For a heartbeat, he felt as though he floated, neither bound by earth nor sky. Then the light drew him in, and the forest, the glade, the arch itself, all faded into silence. Thor was gone, carried beyond the realms he knew, into the mystery that waited. Light surrounded him, soft and endless, neither blinding nor dark. It was not the glow of the sun, nor the pale gleam of the moon, but something gentler, as though the very essence of dawn and dusk had merged into one eternal shimmer. Thor drifted within it, his body weightless, his heart steady, as if he were cradled by the cosmos itself. Slowly, the light thinned, revealing a new landscape. Thor found himself standing upon a vast plain that stretched farther than sight. The ground beneath him gleamed like polished crystal, reflecting the stars above in endless patterns. The sky arched wide, filled with constellations unfamiliar to his eyes, shapes of beasts, rivers of light, paths curling into infinity. He took a slow breath, the air cool yet soothing, carrying no scent of earth or fire, but something pure, like the breath of creation itself. His footsteps echoed faintly across the plain, though no sound lingered long. The space seemed too vast for echoes to cling. As he walked, the stars above shifted, realigning themselves. Constellations bent and curved, their lights flowing downward until they gathered upon the plain itself. Before him, the stars formed a path, threads of silver light stretching far into the horizon, pulsing softly like a living thing. Thor followed, each step carrying him deeper into the unknown. Along the path, figures began to appear, not solid, but woven of light and mist. They drifted like memories given form. Some were tall and graceful, others broad and mighty, their outlines shifting as though shaped by many realms. None spoke, yet all turned their faces toward him as he passed, their gazes calm, their presence neither hostile nor welcoming, only witnessing. Thor felt no fear, only stillness. These were not foes, nor allies, but echoes, fragments of what had been, or perhaps of what could be. The whisper within him pulsed gently, guiding him onward, telling him this was not a place of answers, but of seeing. At length, the path of stars led him to a great expanse where the ground opened into a vast circle. In its center floated a sphere of light, suspended above the crystal plane. It pulsed slowly, radiating waves of warmth and calm, as if it were the very heart of this realm. Thor approached, standing before it. The sphere's glow bathed him in silver and gold, and within its depths, patterns swirled, rivers, roots, branches, endless currents weaving together. He knew them, though not fully. They were not unlike Yggdrasil's roots and branches, yet vaster, stretching into realms unseen beyond the 9 he had known. The whisper within him grew clearer, no longer distant, but one with his breath. His heartbeat, his very being. It spoke without words, yet he understood, this is the beyond. Not of power, nor of conquest, but of connection. All realms flow into one. All storms fade into stillness. Here lies the truth you sought, not what lies ahead, but what always has been. Thor bowed his head slightly, not in submission, but in deep respect. The light pulsed brighter, as though acknowledging him, then softened again into its steady rhythm. He stood there in silence, breathing deeply, letting the vastness of the vision settle into him. The stars drifted above, the plane shimmered beneath, and the sphere of light pulsed endlessly, timeless and calm. Thor remained before the great sphere of light, its steady pulse echoing through him like a second heartbeat. For a long while, he did not move. He simply stood, listening, not with his ears, but with his being. The light did not demand, nor command. It only was. Eternal, patient, and vast. As he breathed, something began to change. The sphere shimmered, and its glow softened into waves that drifted outward. Each wave touched the plane, and where it passed, visions blossomed. To Thor's left, the light formed rivers winding through endless meadows, their waters carrying laughter, song, and peace. To his right, the light revealed halls of golden stone, open to the sky, filled not with warriors, but with voices raised in harmony. Behind him, he glimpsed mountains so high their peaks vanished into stars, yet there was no cold, no storm, only quiet strength. And before him, the light stretched into a vast sea of stars, infinite and calm, their glow spilling like water across the horizon. Thor's chest rose and fell with slow breath, his eyes following the visions. They did not tempt nor warn. They simply showed the truth of what was possible, the shapes of stillness that lay beneath the storm. Then, gently, the sphere dimmed, leaving only the plane, the stars, and its soft pulse. The whisper within him stirred, no longer faint, no longer apart, but one with him. It said, the beyond is not reached by strength, but by presence. You carry storm, but you also carry calm. Both are yours. Both are needed. Walk further, Thunderer, and you will see. Thor bowed his head once more. Then he stepped back from the sphere, turning toward the starry plain. The path of light reformed, leading onward into the distance. Thor followed, his stride steady, his spirit lighter than when he began. The plain stretched far, and yet each step felt effortless, as though the ground carried him. As he walked, the star figures returned, drifting silently across the path. This time, they did not only watch, they reached out, their hands brushing lightly against him, though they were no more solid than mist. Each touch carried warmth, not of fire, but of remembrance, as if they shared fragments of countless journeys, countless lives. Thor accepted their presence, not questioning who they were or from where they came. They were part of the beyond, as he now was. At last, the plane began to rise. The path led toward a ridge, its crest glowing faintly against the horizon. Thor ascended slowly, each step unhurried, until he reached the summit. And there, stretched before him, was a sight that made even the god of thunder pause in quiet awe. A sea of light lay beneath the ridge, vast and endless, its waves slow and luminous, like starlight turned liquid. It rolled without sound, carrying with it constellations, galaxies, and shapes too vast to name. Above, the stars mirrored the sea, until sky and water became one infinite whole. Thor stood at the edge, his breath deep, his spirit calm. The whisper within him spoke again, steady and clear. Here, the realms end. Here, all storms fall silent. Beyond lies only the eternal. Step, if you wish, and see what none among gods have seen. Thor gazed upon the sea of light, his heart steady. He did not yet move. He only stood, watching, breathing, letting the vast stillness embrace him. Thor lingered at the ridge, gazing upon the sea that shimmered below. Its waves moved without sound, each crest glowing faintly before sinking back into the hole. It was not water, nor flame, nor mist, but something greater, a living expanse woven from the essence of stars. The horizon itself seemed to breathe with its rhythm. The whisper within him pulsed once more, clear as a heartbeat. Step forward, Thunderer. The sea does not drown, nor burn. It carries. Thor's hand brushed the haft of his hammer. He did not grasp it in readiness, but in remembrance. All his battles, all his storms, all the weight of his strength had led him here. Yet this moment asked for none of that. Only trust. Slowly, he descended the ridge, his boots pressing softly into the glowing ground until he stood at the sea's edge. The surface rippled faintly, as though aware of his presence. He extended one hand, letting his fingers touch the glow. It was warm, not as flame, but as sunlight upon the skin, gentle and steady. Thor took a breath, steady and full, and stepped forward. The sea accepted him without resistance. His foot sank slightly, not in weight, but as though the light itself parted to carry him. Another step, then another. Soon he stood fully within it, the waves of radiance moving around him, lifting him gently. He did not sink. He did not struggle. He was held. The further he walked, the brighter the light grew. Each wave brushed against him, and with it came visions. He saw the roots of Yggdrasil stretching far beyond what he had known, weaving not into 9, but into countless realms. He saw the birth of stars, vast and slow, like sparks rising from an eternal forge. He saw beings of light, neither god nor giant, watching, waiting, existing in silence. And through it all, he heard the whisper, no longer distant, no longer separate. It was his voice, and yet more than his voice. Storm is strength. Stillness is truth. Both dwell within you. Both are needed to walk the beyond. Thor closed his eyes, allowing the sea to carry him further. He felt no pull of time, no need for haste. The waves bore him gently, like a cradle, like a lullaby. His breath matched their rhythm, slow and steady, until he seemed part of the sea itself. When he opened his eyes, the horizon had changed. Far ahead, rising from the endless glow, stood a great bridge of light. Its span arched high, curving into the stars, its surface shining as though woven from the threads of every constellation. Thor stood within the sea, gazing upon the bridge. His heart was calm, steady, ready. The whisper within him pulsed once more, a final guide for this moment. Beyond the bridge lies the deepest stillness. Step, and you will know what few have ever seen. The sea rippled beneath him, carrying him closer. Thor breathed deeply, and with quiet steps, he began to walk toward the bridge of stars. The sea of light rippled gently at Thor's feet as he drew closer to the bridge. It rose from the glowing waves as though it had always been there, waiting. Its surface shone with countless constellations, each star twined together into strands of silver and gold. The arch stretched impossibly far, vanishing into the heavens above, yet it felt solid, certain, as if it had been forged by eternity itself. Thor paused at its base. He lifted his gaze along its span, breathing deeply. The whisper within him was no longer separate from his thoughts. It was part of him, steady and calm, pulsing with every beat of his heart. He placed one hand upon the bridge. It was warm, alive, humming with the voices of stars. Each note vibrated through his palm, traveling up his arm and into his chest. It was not the roar of thunder, nor the crack of lightning, but something softer, like the sound of rain falling across quiet fields. Thor took his first step onto the bridge. The stars beneath his feet glowed brighter, spreading light outward with each stride. He felt no weight, no burden, only stillness, only calm. The sea below shimmered in silence, carrying its slow, endless waves, while above, the night sky stretched vast and eternal. As he climbed higher, the air shifted. A soft wind stirred, though it was not like the winds of Midgard or Asgard. This wind carried whispers of countless voices, blending into a harmony too vast to name. Some voices were deep, like the rumble of mountains. Others were soft, like lullabies sung in distant halls. Together they formed a chorus that wrapped around him, welcoming him forward. Thor listened, his steps steady. The voices did not speak of war or of glory, but of balance, of the endless weaving between storm and calm, strength and stillness, the known and the unknown. Each note sank deep into him, and for the first time, he felt not the thunderer alone, but the harmony of all he had been, all he could be. The higher he walked, the brighter the stars around him grew. The bridge seemed to carry him into the very fabric of the cosmos, each step dissolving the boundaries between earth, sky, and sea. He no longer knew if he walked above the sea of light or within the heavens themselves. Perhaps both. Perhaps neither. At last, he reached the crest of the bridge. From here, the view stretched endless. The sea of light rolled beneath him, its waves touching every horizon. Above, the stars curved in vast rivers, their glow flowing into the sea below. Sky and ocean were one, and Thor stood at the center, a single being within an endless whole. The whisper within him spoke once more, its voice soft and steady. Here lies the heart of stillness. Beyond this point, no storm follows, no shadow lingers. Step further, and you will know the truth of the beyond. Thor stood at the crest, his breath calm, his gaze steady. He did not rush. He only watched, listened, and let the stillness embrace him. As the stars burned quietly around him, and the sea of light carried its eternal song, Thor stood at the crest of the bridge, gazing across the endless expanse. The sea of light rolled beneath him in steady waves, and the heavens above shimmered like rivers of flame frozen in silence. The air was still, yet filled with a presence so vast it seemed to press gently against his skin, as though the cosmos itself leaned closer to watch. He breathed deeply, his chest rising and falling in rhythm with the sea below. The whisper within him was no longer a guide apart. It was his heartbeat, his breath, his very being. No longer a call, but a truth. Thor stepped forward, continuing along the bridge. Each stride set ripples of glow spreading outward, the stars beneath his feet brightening, then fading as he passed. The path ahead curved gently downward, as though leading not to an end, but into the heart of the beyond itself. As he walked, the voices returned. The chorus that had risen as he climbed now flowed around him, softer, steadier, wrapping him in sound like a cloak. They no longer sang of storm or calm, but of stillness itself. A stillness that was not empty, but whole, vast enough to hold every storm, every silence, every breath of the realms. Thor closed his eyes as he walked, trusting the bridge beneath him. With his sight turned inward, he felt the voices more deeply, and in them, he heard echoes of himself. Not only the Thunderer, not only the warrior, but the guardian, the brother, the son. He felt the laughter he had once shared in Asgard's halls, the warmth of hearths in Midgard, the peace of fields after the storm had passed. He realized then that the beyond was not apart from him. It was within him, as it was within all things. Storm and stillness were not opposites, but companions, shaping one another, bound by balance. When he opened his eyes, the bridge had brought him lower, closer to the sea once more. The horizon stretched vast, but ahead he saw something new, an island rising from the waves of light. It was small, yet its presence was undeniable, as though it had been waiting since the first spark of creation. The island shimmered with silver sands, its surface glowing softly. At its center stood a single tree, slender yet tall, its branches crowned with leaves of pure starlight. Each leaf glowed faintly, and as they stirred, they released soft sparks that drifted into the air like fireflies. The bridge ended at the island's edge, merging seamlessly with its sands. Thor paused, breathing deeply, his gaze steady upon the tree. He knew, without words, that this was the heart of the journey, the place where the beyond revealed its deepest truth. The whisper within him pulsed once more, soft as a sigh. "Step gently, Thunderer. The tree awaits." And with calm steps, Thor descended the last span of the bridge, his feet meeting the silver sands of the island. The silver sands were cool beneath Thor's feet, glowing softly with every step he took. The sea of light lapped gently at the island's edge, its waves carrying a hush so deep it seemed like the breath of eternity itself. The air here was unlike any he had known, not heavy, not light, but perfectly balanced, as though it carried neither weight nor emptiness, only calm. At the island's center stood the tree. Its trunk was slender yet unyielding, rising gracefully from the sands. Its bark shimmered with a quiet silver glow, like moonlight made solid. From its branches hung countless leaves, each one shaped from starlight. They swayed gently though no wind stirred, releasing sparks that drifted upward. Dissolving into the night sky, Thor walked slowly toward it, his eyes lifted to the shimmering crown. The closer he came, the deeper the stillness grew, until even his heartbeat seemed to soften, blending with the rhythm of the sea around him. He felt as though the entire cosmos leaned close, watching, waiting, yet without urgency. He placed his hand upon the trunk. The surface was warm, alive, humming softly. As his palm rested there, the tree answered, not with words, but with vision. Thor's gaze filled with light. He saw Yggdrasil, the great world tree, stretching its roots and branches across the 9 realms. He saw the paths of gods and mortals, woven together like threads of a vast tapestry. Storms rose, battles raged, empires grew and fell, yet through it all, the pattern remained, ever shifting, ever whole. And then the vision grew wider. Beyond the 9 realms, beyond even the farthest star, he saw other trees, other weavings, endless and infinite, each glowing with their own harmony. They did not clash. They did not compete. They simply existed, side by side, part of a greater whole too vast to name. The whisper within him rose, steady and clear. All storms belong to the stillness. All journeys return to the whole. You are thunder, but you are also peace. You are one leaf upon the endless tree. Thor drew in a slow breath, his eyes soft, his spirit calm. He did not resist the vision, nor question it. He simply let it settle within him, as naturally as rain upon the earth. The sparks drifting from the branches surrounded him now, circling gently, glowing brighter with every breath he took. They did not burn. They did not fade. They lingered, as though recognizing him, as though welcoming him. Thor lowered his hand, but the glow remained within him. He stepped back from the tree, his gaze still lifted, his chest steady. And for the first time in his long life, he felt no storm within, no weight of battle pressing against him. Only balance. Only stillness. The tree shimmered softly, as though acknowledging him. Thor stood before the tree of starlight, its branches whispering softly as sparks drifted upward into the endless sky. For a long while, he simply breathed. The silver sands beneath his feet were cool, the sea of light lapped gently at the island's edge, and the cosmos itself seemed to hush, as though it too was listening. Slowly, Thor lowered himself to the ground. He sat upon the glowing sand, leaning back against the tree's trunk. The warmth of it spread through him, not as fire, but as a steady glow, like the last embers of a hearth. His eyes softened, his breath deepened, and the storms within him grew quiet. Above, the branches swayed gently, releasing sparks that fell like slow snow. They drifted around him, some settling upon his shoulders, his arms, his hair. Each spark carried a faint hum, and together they formed a lullaby, not sung with words, but with the rhythm of the cosmos. Thor closed his eyes. He no longer felt apart from the sea, the sky, or the tree. He was within them, and they within him. His thoughts slowed, his heartbeat matched the steady pulse of the beyond, and his spirit rested as it had never rested before. Visions came, not as storms, but as gentle waves. He saw Asgard, shining golden in the distance. He saw Midgard, fields green after rain, children laughing in quiet villages. He saw his companions, faces he had known, voices he had heard, and each vision glowed softly, not calling him to action, but reminding him of the threads that bound him to all things. The whisper within him spoke once more, softer than it had ever been, almost indistinguishable from his own breath. Rest, Thunderer. The journey is not only in the walking. It is in the stillness, too. You are held. You are whole. The sparks continued to drift, settling upon him like a cloak of starlight. His body grew lighter, as though the sands themselves carried him. Time, if it passed at all, passed gently, without weight. The sea of light moved, the stars shimmered, and Thor rested beneath the starlit tree, his spirit balanced between storm and silence. And in that balance, the beyond sang to him, not with voice, but with presence. A song older than thunder, older than gods, older than even the roots of Yggdrasil. A song of eternal rest, eternal calm. Thor let it carry him, let it cradle him, let it sink into every part of his being. And for the first time, he felt himself as not only Thor, god of thunder, but as a single note in an endless harmony. Thor remained beneath the starlit tree, his breath slow, his spirit wrapped in stillness. The sparks drifting from the branches gathered more thickly now, circling around him in gentle spirals. They glowed softly, not blinding, but steady, as though carrying a purpose. One by one, the sparks touched him, upon his brow, his hands, his chest. Each left behind a warmth, not heavy, not fleeting, but eternal. It was as if the beyond itself pressed fragments of its truth into him, weaving them into the fabric of his being. The visions returned, softer than before. He saw his hammer, Mjolnir, resting silent in his hand. No thunder roared, no lightning split the sky. Instead, it glowed faintly, humming with the same stillness that filled him now. For the first time, Thor understood. Even the weapon of storms carried within it the seed of silence, the calm before the strike, the balance that made the thunder whole. Then he saw Asgard, not in its feasts or its battles, but in quiet moments. The golden halls at dusk, when laughter had faded and only the warmth of hearth fires remained. He saw Midgard, fields lying beneath the night sky, dew forming silently upon the grass. He saw his companions not in victory or struggle, but in rest, in peace, in simple breath. The whisper rose within him again, clear and final. Storm is not only noise. It is rhythm. Stillness is not only silence, it is strength. Together, they are wholeness. Carry this truth, Thunderer, and wherever you walk, the beyond will walk with you. Thor opened his eyes, and the sparks drew inward. They settled upon his chest, forming a soft glow that pulsed in time with his heartbeat. The glow did not fade. It remained, steady and calm, a gift from the beyond. The sea of light hushed, as though pausing to witness. The stars above dimmed gently, bowing their brilliance. Even the tree itself stilled, its branches motionless, its sparks suspended midair. For one timeless moment, all was quiet. Thor breathed, and with that breath, he knew he had received what he had come for. Not power, not conquest, but balance. A gift that would outlast storms, battles, and even the span of ages. When the moment passed, the sea stirred again. The stars shone once more. The sparks drifted lazily from the branches. The lullaby of the beyond resumed its song. Thor rose slowly to his feet. He placed his hand once more upon the trunk of the tree, bowing his head in silent thanks. Then he turned toward the edge of the island, where the bridge of stars shimmered faintly, waiting to carry him back. The glow within his chest pulsed softly, guiding him. He stepped from the silver sands, leaving the starlit tree behind, its light now within him. Thor stepped once more onto the bridge of stars, the silver sands of the island falling quietly behind him. The glow within his chest pulsed with each stride, steady and calm, as though the beyond itself now walked with him. The bridge stretched before him, arching high across the sea of light. Yet it no longer felt distant or vast. It felt familiar, like a path he had always known but never seen. Each star beneath his feet shimmered as he passed, not in farewell, but in recognition. The voices returned, the chorus of the beyond, but they sang differently now. No longer were they whispers of guidance or calls to balance. Instead, they sang in harmony with him, weaving his breath, his steps, his heartbeat into their song. Thor was not being led. He was part of the melody. As he descended, he looked out across the sea. It rolled endlessly still, but he no longer saw it as mysterious or unreachable. It was simply itself, calm, eternal, carrying the light of countless stars. He realized he carried the same within. Storm and stillness, strength and silence, endless and whole. The further he walked, the more the bridge softened, dissolving at the edges. Its stars no longer bound the path, but drifted freely, swirling gently around him. It was as though the bridge itself acknowledged his gift, releasing him, no longer needing to hold him. Thor continued, unafraid, his steps steady even as the bridge faded into the sea of light. The glow within his chest grew brighter, guiding him, illuminating his path. Soon, he walked not upon stars, but upon light itself, carried gently by the waves. The horizon began to shift. The sea of light grew fainter, the stars above thinned, and the vast silence softened into something familiar. He sensed the realms returning, the threads of Yggdrasil weaving themselves once more around him, the pull of places he had known calling faintly in the distance. Thor slowed, pausing for one last look. Behind him, the sea of light stretched endless, the starlit tree a faint shimmer upon the horizon, eternal and unchanging. Ahead, the outlines of the realms waited, their shapes dim, but clear enough to know he was being called home. The whisper within him rose, not as a guide, but as part of his own voice. The beyond does not end when you leave it. It dwells within you. Carry it, Thunderer, in storm and in calm alike. Thor bowed his head once more. Then, with steady steps, he walked forward into the soft glow of the realms, leaving the sea of light behind, but carrying its gift within him forever. The light around Thor shifted, growing warmer, more familiar. The endless sea of stars dimmed into the deep sky, and the soft hum of the beyond gave way to the quiet pulse of the realms. Slowly, the outlines of Yggdrasil's branches stretched into sight, vast and rooted, connecting worlds once more. Thor stepped forward, and the sea of light gave way beneath his feet, replaced by solid ground. It was not the silver sands of the island, nor the shimmering bridge of stars, but earth, dark, steady, alive. The air was cooler, carrying the faint scents of wind and soil. Somewhere far away, he thought he heard the distant call of a raven, the echo of waves, the whisper of leaves in Midgard's forests. He stood still, breathing deeply, letting the realms fold back around him. Yet though the world was familiar, he was not the same. The glow within his chest pulsed gently, steady as a second heartbeat. It was not a fire to burn, nor a storm to rage, but a calm light, endless and sure. Thor lifted his gaze. The stars above twinkled faintly, ordinary and yet not. For he now knew their song, their silence, their place within the whole. He carried their truth within him, and in that truth he felt no need to raise his hammer, no urge to summon the storm. Instead, he stood quietly, a god wrapped in stillness. The whisper, his whisper, rose within him, softer than breath. You have walked the beyond. You have touched its stillness. Now return to the realms, Thunderer, not only as a storm, but as balance. Thor closed his eyes, bowing his head in silent acknowledgement. The storms within him would still rise, as they always had. Battles would come, as they always did. But beneath them, beyond them, there would always be this calm, this truth, this light. He opened his eyes once more. Yggdrasil stretched before him, its branches vast, its roots deep, carrying the weight of the realms. He felt no burden as he looked upon it, only steadiness, only presence.